Hey guys, welcome into Sports Around the Bar. I hope I waited long enough so it didn't cut off the first couple seconds of my intro, like it always does.
It's the most important piece that you do.
I know that was
show.
the best thing I'm ever going to say on the show.
Right. Well, that was Sports Around the Bar, guys. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
See ya. All right, welcome into the show, guys. We've got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, just dropping in, Josh Gordon officially back in the NFL. I know we don't need to worry, because the Patriots now went from some question marks at wide receiver. Things are looking a lot brighter in New England.
Is he playing tight end?
No.
So it does not matter.
Well, it matters to me. It matters to them, I bet you. There's a reason they kept this guy around, because they have been waiting for Josh Gordon to come back. Also, we're going to talk about a bunch of injuries rolling in with the preseason here. Some major ones that might impact your team and how they're going to do. Also, rookie impressions from what we've seen so far, and whether it's time to hit the panic button or not. Spoiler alert, it's not, but we're going to talk about what we've seen.
On the rookie, or on the quarterback.
As the rookie quarterbacks, yes. And we're also going to talk about the Raiders in 2019. We're going to swing around DeMarcus Cousins, too. Sad story, not a lot to say. Why don't we start with that?
Is it sad?
I'm sad. I think he's a good player. I think basketball's better with him there.
You're absolutely right. I mean, is it sad? I mean, the guy's still worth millions, still made millions. He's been having injury issues for a while now. I mean, this isn't something new. It's just unfortunate for him. It seems to always be season-long injuries. And were the Lakers relying on him to be there and be a centerpiece of their offense and defense? Absolutely, they were.
I'm sure they were hoping.
This is a bigger blow to the Lakers than I think it is in the sense of Cousins' career. Though it might be over, the guy's still a millionaire.
Yeah, but remember, this is the guy who's been taking the cheap deals because he wants to prove he can still do it. And then the injury bug always seems to creep up and come back and get him. I mean, the basketball is worse without DeMarcus Cousins there, but I think the competition in the West is better because the Lakers aren't going to have him. I think now we are truly almost in a league where everyone has two stars. I think Golden State might be the team that you can still point to a big three, but even that, they're going to be missing Klay Thompson for most of the season.
True.
It's sad news. I don't want to see anyone's career shortened, especially a guy that good by injury, but, I mean, we've seen guys like Derrick Rose kind of hang around. Maybe that's who DeMarcus Cousins turns into.
I mean, he's going to have to change something because he's too young at this point to really call it a career. He's going to need to start yoga classes or something. He's going to have to change something up.
And this happened in a workout, too, so maybe he's just pressuring himself too hard to get back out there. Good to see you, Jonathan. Nathan, I'm sorry. Good to see you, too, man. Always glad to see you guys in here, but now I think we're going to move on and talk a little bit of football. Unless you've got some groundbreaking DeMarcus Cousins stats
he's a
or anything
jerk.
you want to drink. Well, yeah, but he's fun to watch. He's not a jerk to me.
Well, he probably would be if he knew you.
That is true. I mean, that might be the only thing holding him back. So he hasn't got the chance to meet me yet. He probably heard all those nice things I was saying about him. I'm sure we'd be friends.
You seem like you'd hang out with him.
Thank you for that. All right, we'll move forward. We're going to talk about a couple injuries. Or do you want to do Josh Gordon? Because, again, Josh Gordon's throwing us all off. This happened like 20 minutes ago.
I don't care. Either or.
Let's talk Josh Gordon first.
Let's do it.
With him coming back, is this the right move by the NFL that seems to suspend him indefinitely, suspend him for seasons time and time again, and then he manages to crawl back in?
What blows my mind is the fact that it happened so fast. The Patriots must be in the league's ear. They're like, listen, you need to reinstate him so we can prep for the season with him. You can't do us like you did last year where he wasn't on the same page for 3 weeks and then finally,
Have we turned the corner? Is this Roger Goodell in the NFL saying, man, we're getting real close to coming up to him to collectively bargain for our next NFL contract? Do we need to ease up so that we can keep some controls, or this isn't as big of an issue going into those negotiations? We've already seen Tyreek Hill. I don't want to say get off scot-free, but again, the NFL didn't throw the book at him.
He got off scot-free.
We've seen Zeke Elliott not get suspended, and now all of a sudden we're seeing Josh Gordon reinstated early into the season without too much of a fight, unless it all happened behind closed doors. I look at this, Drew, and I say I think the NFL might be either making a play towards their negotiations, or it might just be Roger Goodell saying, I got to take my foot off the gas a little bit.
Well, we just lost one viewer. Ian is no longer going to be watching us from now on.
He also came back to say that he knows it's preseason, but Kansas City is going to lose on Saturday to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's good seeing you, Ian.
Bold statement. Alex, good to see you too, man.
Hold on.
Does it matter? Does it matter? And that's my question. I mean, to me, I want to see the ones
hopefully
beat the
Ian
ones.
right now is having a stroke because that's what I just sent him through my brainwaves through the camera.
It's a little dark. I don't think we're going to be able to boost our show now.
Well, thanks,
Facebook. Anyway, going back to this, look, I don't think it matters. All I want to see, if this was one of my teams, is how do my ones look against their ones? And I know everything could be vanilla play calling wise, unless you're the Oakland Raiders sending blitz packages after Kyler Murray out for blood on the
What
rookie
did they send
quarterback.
him?
Blitz packages.
Oh.
I know, it was tough.
It was not played like a regular season or a preseason game. It was played like a regular season game. It was something else. It was a statement by the Raiders, for sure. 100%.
We don't lose meaningless games. We save that for games that mean something.
Right.
We are talking Raiders at the end of the show as well. I think when you look at the way this kind of preseason has shaped up, and we'll go into this, before we finish up with Josh Gordon, I think at the very least, you're concerned about where the starters finish, right? And what the starters look like against everyone's ones. But even if your team gets blown out, I mean, the Patriots, when they had their perfect season, lost to the Titans in the preseason. Did that taint anything or have anything to do with the regular season? No. No, it just meant more to the other team. And probably, let's be honest, the Titans probably played that one a little bit harder than the Patriots did. So I wouldn't worry about it, Ian, one way or the other. If Pittsburgh wins on Saturday, if the Chiefs win on Saturday, as long as everyone comes out healthy, it's a win for both teams.
You're lucky. Ian, you're lucky Jake made me laugh so it didn't get completely sent to you. You're lucky this one time. Steven says, free Alden. If guys like this get their 100th chance, Alden Smith should have another chance by now.
And here's another reason I think this also came down. Because marijuana, I think we're starting to soften on it as a culture. It's not as big of a deal. I think maybe the NFL is starting to get with the times a little bit.
Me and Steven worked on it in high school together.
Yeah.
Softening it up for
Good
everybody.
job. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think they've done a good job now of saying how serious of an offense is this, especially when we're talking about domestic violence and everything else that's coming up that's 1,000 times more serious than a guy who likes to smoke pot, and especially a guy who's addicted to it and has come out and said,
Right.
look, I've got a problem. I'm trying to fix it. I say I got no problem with this. I really don't. I think you can give him every chance under the sun. If he does it again, suspend him again. I'd be okay with that. I think it's one of those things that as long as he's trying to make a concerted effort to come back, I would say pass that first drug test, you get back on the field.
Dylan, what's going on, man? Glad you could join us. Owen, glad you're here too. He's saying Baker. He's
Something to be excited about. Again,
Yeah.
but pump the brakes. It's still preseason, but that offense looks like it's really good. Especially if you were reading what they did to the Colts in the early season practices, like the scrimmages they have. You've got a lot to be excited about in Cleveland. I think we might have been on track when we gave them, 10 or 11 wins? I think we might have been on track.
Alex is saying, is he worth drafting in his fantasy league this year, Gordon? And before we answer that, we want to keep on telling you guys about our fantasy league. Would you like me to do it, or you?
I would like you to do it.
All right, let me burp real quick. I was trying to hope you would let you do it.
Oh no, you're the ad guy. Go ahead.
All right, guys. Just to remind all of you how important this is, we are donating to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So with that, that's how you're going to find yourself on our fantasy league. We'll still have tons of spots open. $1 can get you in. I know it's not giving us who's donating what. You need it when you donate. You need to let us know what you donated so we could put you on the list. But right now,
this is your chance to be famous.
$1 gets you in.
This is your chance to be famous. We're going to read. I'm not going to say we're going to talk about everything going on in the fantasy league, but we are going to be talking about it as the season moves on. You get to show everyone you know more about football than we do. Just dunk on us.
You don't.
That's all you got to do. But you can pretend like it.
You can pretend. And actually, I think we're also going to have a trophy system where, we're going to be putting your name on there if you guys can beat us.
Don't promise anything, but maybe.
No, we're going to be.
We're going to try.
I will build it with tinsel and foil.
Oh, it's going to be great. Anyway, if you want to play fantasy football with us, literally $1 to St. Jude's to a great cause. Get you in right now. Click on our page. Click on posts. Scroll down a little bit. You'll see it. I promise.
It's there.
One of the top twos. I've been sharing it like every day.
Yeah.
Again, it'd be great if we could get to play with you. Going to Alex's question, though. Is Melvin Gordon worth drafting? Absolutely. Is he worth drafting in the first round? Oh, pump the brakes. There's a lot of other running backs I like up high. I would say try to steal this guy in the late second round.
Wide receiver?
Was he talking Melvin Gordon? Or
No,
is he talking
he's
Josh Gordon?
Josh
Oh, I'm
Gordon.
sorry. Well, Melvin Gordon, pump the brakes on him. As for Josh Gordon, way pump the brakes, but yes, draft him. New England, when he had him, was their best receiver by far last year. Wide receiver. Obviously, Gronk was making an impact, and Edelman was struggling when Gordon was there. So I think Edelman really exploded without him. I think as long as he's there, I think he's the man that Tom Brady's most comfortable throwing to because he's faster, and he can do a little bit more stuff on the sideline. I'm going to say he's worth drafting. I think so.
No,
This is like a 6th or 7th round
100%
pick.
he's worth drafting.
Yeah,
100%.
This is a 6th or 7th round pick. Just know that he has the chance of getting suspended and stack out your wide receiving core. Have a couple more options, but that's not hard to do at receiver.
Ivy, I'm glad you could join us, man. or lady.
Woman. Yes, thank you
Sorry.
for coming in. Anyway, let's do a couple more of these comments here. Steven says, Ian, when did the Raiders ever play this well in the preseason? The Raiders are always champs against the Steelers, including last season. That was a joke, just so you know. He says, if only we could play Pittsburgh every game, they'd go 16-0. I like the hate talk. I don't know if that's true, but I like it. I like the optimism, Steven. And I'm glad you're here to talk Raiders with us.
To answer your second question in the next little post, we will stop taking donations on the 25th, and the plan is at this point in time that the draft will be literally the next day on the 26th.
If we can get everyone signed up. If we can't, we'll kick it on down the week.
We'll push it a couple of days, trying to add some more people into it.
And we're thinking about doing a live draft on the show so you can see what's going on in our minds as we're reacting to your picks as well.
It might be the most boring.
It might also be technical difficulty central, because I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try to figure it out. That's okay, though.
You're just going to see me going.
See, we need an intern, man. We need an intern that I can just, point and say, get this done.
We tried.
I know, and we failed. Like a lot of things. But that's okay. We'll move forward. We'll keep talking about this really quick. Nathan says, don't pass on Damian Williams this year in fantasy football. You are 100% right. Don't steal my sleeper picks. I think Damian Williams might be one of the sexiest 4th or 5th round picks in fantasy if he falls that far. I've seen him being like the 44th, 45th running back off the board. If you can get him for that, you take him and you take that all the way to the bank.
Steven, I hope you do donate, man. That'd be great. Ken says, Raiders had a good first quarter. They did.
A lot of it comes down to who's playing harder. Like you said, looking at Kyler Murray, if we're talking about this week 2, they were blitzing like crazy. Yeah. Not like crazy, but they were sending the house after Kyler sometimes to make him uncomfortable.
Blitz packages all over the first quarter against
Kyler. And the greatest safety, my guy, LaMarcus Joyner, in the NFL, safetied Kyler Murray. Are you ready to admit that he's better than Eric Weddle? Did we talk about that on camera? I think we did. Anyway, it comes down to who wants more.
How do you figure?
We're not getting into that. That was a joke, okay? Relax.
No, you need to explain yourself right now on live Facebook.
He just safetied the first overall pick in the draft, okay? Best quarterback in 2019, he safetied him. I don't care if it was preseason. He got a safety from the safety position, Drew. It's a match made in heaven. Those guys aren't supposed to be in the backfield.
Is it ironic?
No, a little bit. But we'll move forward here. I want to talk about this game really quick because we'll go into these rookie quarterback impressions. This kind of ties into it because, perfect segue, we have talked about off air the rookies and how much this means that we're seeing, because all these Giant fans are ready to crown Daniel Jones the next starter, and I realize he probably just kicked off here about 30 minutes ago.
Yeah,
they're ready to say he should be replacing Eli. They're also saying Kyler Murray doesn't look good. This Cardinals offense looks uninspired. Drew, let's start with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. How much of this is something we can take to the bank, and how much of this is just preseason talk that by week 1 is not going to matter?
Well, I mean, you have to sit there and analyze your quarterback of the future. There's no doubt about it. You can't sit there and say, well, we didn't give him a really tough play to be ran. It's against mediocre defense, or in Kyler Murray, it's against blitz packages from every corner you could look at. There is some takeaway from this, but you don't sit there and, like people have said, Daniel Jones is winning the preseason. He played one series.
He was 5 for 5, Drew. Perfect. If we get that across the entire season, nothing can go wrong. Giants to the Super Bowl.
How many series does he have to be?
Well, that was one series, but it was a perfect series. I liked what I saw out of Daniel Jones. More importantly, I think he's probably further along than the rest of these quarterbacks, because I saw a lot of quarterbacks like Dwayne Haskins, and we've seen more out of him, like Drew Lock, and we've seen more out of him, like Kyler Murray, and again, we've seen more out of him. But unlike those guys, I didn't see a whole lot of errant passes where the ball wasn't where it needed to be. He was throwing it down the field. He was throwing it into tight windows at times for 1 or 2 of those passes. And he was also completing the short stuff.
Yeah.
With guys like Dwayne Haskins, we saw high throws all the time, especially through week 2. We've seen him be inaccurate. We've seen him throw the ball a little too high for these receivers. That could be nerves. It could work itself out. I think all of this doesn't matter. All of this that we're seeing, do not let it fool you. Because each and every one of these guys is going to have weeks and weeks and weeks of preparation. They're learning a new offense. They've probably been in it for like 6 weeks now. Like actually running it with the team and actually having the playbook. Don't panic. Don't overread this. I think a lot of what we see, I saw someone like, I think it was Rex Ryan, come out and say, the Cardinals offense looks too simple. It's the preseason. They're not trying to show anything off. So, of course, it's simple.
So I want to go back to Daniel Jones real quick. And even though his 5 for 5 in that series, quote unquote, was perfect with a touchdown, you need that though. You need that boost of confidence as an NFL quarterback. None of these guys have made it into the NFL with zero talent. They're all talented. But you need to go to the right system. You need to be coached properly, and then you need to have confidence in your game. There's no doubt about it. That's big for Daniel Jones. Is he the next best thing in the New York Giants uniform? Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. Sharif, we always appreciate the share, man. It absolutely helps us a ton. So if anyone else wants to share, man, we appreciate you for doing that. Also, Steven says Melvin has not re-signed. He asked if Gordon has re-signed. And he also wants to know, isn't that a risky pick in round 2 unless he signs first? This could very well be another Le'Veon Bell situation. Yes, it's risky, but it's kind of like when Zeke was suspended. If you grab this guy in the second round and you're getting what might be a top 5, top 7 running back, and you spend another pick on running back, you're going to have 2 elite guys back to back. Okay. So you're gambling a little bit.
Well, I got to pump the brakes a little bit. Is Melvin Gordon a top 5, top 7
fantasy-wise
elite pick?
Fantasy-wise, when he's healthy, yeah. And that's a gamble. Yeah, I think so.
I think he's a late first-round pick. I think he's more like a top 10. Well, then where he's 7, 8, 9, 10. Those picks are probably more where Melvin Gordon's at, right?
If you're playing PPR,
because the Chargers organization doesn't run as much as other teams do, and really when it comes to a passing down, Eckler's going to be out there.
He gets a lot of touches. He gets a lot of touches, and that's all that matters. I'll say this: you're getting good equity. How about that? If you're spending a bottom second round,
and he's injury prone. He's not injury for long term, but he does miss a few games.
He has had injuries, but if you're on the back 6 of your second round in fantasy and you can get a guy like Melvin Gordon, do it. And then just count on yourself drafting well enough that you're going to be able to float until he comes back. I get what you're saying. Le'Veon Bell sat out a whole year, but we've seen that happen one time in NFL history. Gamble on that being the exception and not the rule, especially for a team like the Chargers that think they're going to win a Super Bowl or think they're going to be close to winning a Super Bowl and they're going to need their star running back.
Dwayne Haskins. I want to talk about him because we're going into quarterback rookie and what they look like. I am all about not getting too excited about what a preseason game looks like, but we really, truly need to talk about his first game. You cannot go out there against mostly players that probably won't be on the teams they're playing for. They'll still probably play in the NFL,
right?
Just not the teams that they're playing for, and throw 2 picks. You cannot do that as the future quarterback of your organization. Now, I get it. He was probably throwing to third-string receivers
third-string receivers on the Redskins, who are notoriously bad at receiver.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And offensive line's not that good. But if you sit there and you go back and look at these throws, and I know you have and I have, they're not impressive. There is some stuff that he definitely needs to work out in his mechanics, regardless if it's pressure on him or the receiver's not running the right route. You cannot throw those balls like he was throwing.
Yeah, I think the pressure got to him. I think they were allowing a lot of defenders to get in the backfield. Even on 4-man rushes, he didn't have a lot of time to throw. He was sailing the ball a lot. There were some open passes where the receiver had somebody beat, just overshot him a little bit. There were also throws that, even though he was finding the receiver's having to catch the ball up over his head. And when that happens, that's how those turn into picks. Underthrown, it hits the dirt, not a big deal. When you overthrow and it either skips off your receiver's hands or he doesn't get to touch it, that's how a safety comes up and catches it right in the gut. So, he has something to work on, but I'm saying relax. Again, this could be stage fright. This is this guy's second game in the NFL on the biggest stage he's been on. I get he was at Ohio State, and he didn't face the defenses he's going to face in the NFL. There's a learning curve for sure, but I'm going to say it's early. I'm not as worried about it. Not yet.
Dad, thank you for the share. I appreciate it. And I know Jake does too.
Absolutely.
Alex says Melvin had one good season, and Rivers is going to have
Melvin's had 2 good seasons.
Year of his life. I still agree with Alex. I think Alex is agreeing with me. He is definitely a first-round pick, but he's not a top first-round pick.
And look, wherever you want to put him, that's fine. And I think it depends on how you play. If I'm playing non-PPR, I think he's a little bit higher on the list. I think you move someone like Christian McCaffrey down a little bit if you're playing non-PPR. But if you're playing points per reception, which is what PPR stands for, I think Melvin Gordon does take that small step down towards the bottom of the first round, like 7, 8, 9, 10, like you said. That's fine. But if you're on the back half of the second round and you can get 2 of those guys, like your first pick, you're going to go and take, because you're picking in the top 6, you're going to go take an Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, you're going to go take a stud running back, and then you take Melvin Gordon with your other pick in the second round. When he comes back, you're going to be one of the best teams. All you need to do is float until that happens.
No, and I get it. And I'm not sitting there saying he's not To be honest, he should go in the first round, especially a 12-team league. There's no doubt about it. He should go because if they are not throwing the ball, which the Chargers love to do it in the red zone, if they're not throwing it in that red zone area, he is the one going to be carrying that ball into the end zone.
But I think they're counting on
Eckler's not
running
big
a little
enough.
bit too, though.
Eckler's not big enough.
Absolutely, but I think they're counting on running a little bit more this year too. I mean, they let Tyrell Williams walk, like we're going to talk with Oakland here in a minute, and on top of it, they're just not as strong a receiver. I mean, they have their stud, whose name I can't think of. I can see his face. Keenan Allen. They have Keenan Allen. They have Mike Williams expected to take a bigger role after he was that 7th overall pick from a couple of years ago here. I think they still have options at wide receiver, but things are still not as deep as they were in years past in San Diego. I think they're going to need Melvin Gordon if they're going to make a deep run into these playoffs.
Steven says he will gladly let us take Melvin in the draft. He says,
and I gladly will.
I'm holding off on this one. Too risky for me.
That's how you win, though. You take one of these risk plays and you wind up with a stacked team. As long as your running backs stay healthy, all you need is you need somewhere around average play from your receivers, and you're going to win.
Let's remind everyone
not to give our strategy away. Yes, because we're playing together.
Le'Veon Bell, what he did last year, no one has really ever done. No one has ever done, and that kind of talent and money being talked about, no one's ever set out a whole year. Okay, Melvin Gordon, if he does it, I mean, it's just kind of like a copycat situation. But I highly doubt this guy's going to sit out.
Yeah.
If this guy is going to play at some point in time, I'd be really, really surprised if he sits out the whole season. Le'Veon Bell is when you're doing averages, he is a outlier. That is something that does not happen. These guys rarely give up millions of dollars. At some point in time, he's going to be there and play. So if you're sitting there talking about taking him late second round, late third round because no one's picking him up, heck yeah, you take him. Trust me, waiver wire, you will find a running back somewhere because of injuries.
Yeah, and guys, just real quick, because we saw our viewership take a step forward here. If you want to play fantasy football with the show, all you have to do, click on our name, click on our post, and give a single $1 to St. Jude's. That will get you in right now. We're going to take the top 11 donators here between now and, next week. And we're going to go and start a fantasy league. You guys are going to get to play against us, and you're going to get to hear all about it. So here's your chance to do it. Also, the real quick thing, before we move on from that, Steven, the Melvin Gordon play is risky. You're 100% right, but this is how you win your fantasy league. If you're playing in a money league, or if you're playing in a league where you get rewarded for finishing towards the top, this is the kind of move you make to make something happen. I think if you sit back and play conservative, it's real easy to get beat, and at that point, you're just betting on your team staying healthy. This is the kind of move that could win you your league.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
We'll move forward, though. Let's talk about these quarterbacks real quick before we wrap up. I think we've done a good job. The only other guy I want to talk about is Drew Lock, because by far he looks like he's the worst one, right?
We haven't talked Kyler Murray either.
We haven't really talked Kyler Murray. We can go into Kyler too.
Okay. You can do Drew Lock.
Real quick on Drew Lock, I think he's the furthest away. Obviously, he played in the Hall of Fame game, so he had a little bit less time to prepare than some of these other guys did. But I think when you look at the way that Drew Lock has performed with this Denver offense is going to struggle again. They have the running game seemingly intact with Royce Freeman and their other running back, Phillip Lindsay, both of whom you should consider in fantasy, but I am worried about the split with those two. When you look at what he's done, though, even though he's playing deep in the group, he's, to me, seems like, by far, you have the other three that were taken far ahead of him in the first round, and then you have Drew Lock. So is Joe Flacco safer of a quarterback after what we've seen in the preseason?
No. I still think you got to set it as it's preseason. Yes, you develop and look at the play that this guy's doing and change stuff he's doing, but you don't throw in the towel. You don't push the panic button just yet. Now, if this is week 2 and that was what he was playing,
slam the panic button.
You slam the panic button a little bit because you're like, all right, man, week 3 you need to perform or we're in trouble.
Or we're out of the race. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I agree with you. They have options, so they don't have to rush him onto the field. But I'm also watching this saying, should the Broncos have just waited? And maybe this is me overreacting to the preseason,
Steven's
right?
saying that Elway can evaluate a quarterback to save his life. It's insane considering it's John Elway.
I also think this is something where Elway might have panicked and said, I missed, right? I expected there to be quarterbacks. I traded my pick to the Steelers instead, and I missed on a quarterback.
I mean, he said Case Keenum was his guy in the future.
I know, but that's what you have to say. You can't be like, Case Keenum's a bum, but we're just going to roll with him. You can't say that as a GM.
Yes, you can.
No, you cannot.
You don't say
Not
bum.
when you sign him.
You just say, he is my quarterback until we get Paxton Lynch ready to roll. You can say that.
I don't think so.
Yes, you can.
I don't think so. Especially when Paxton Lynch comes up like a goose egg. You have to throw your support 100% behind the guy. You say, this is our guy. He's going to be great. And then when he's not, you're like, Case Keenum was a mistake. I'll be honest with you. We had to move on. That's how the NFL works. That's what the Titans are doing right now with Marcus Mariota. They're like, he's our starter. And then you watch Ryan Tannehill just outperform him both in practice and in preseason to the point where the national media is like, what are the Titans doing? So, yeah, you 100% can pass on a quarterback or just overhype your quarterback a little bit as a GM. That's your job.
I mean, you sit there and tell me
it's
it's
your
his
job to sell tickets too.
You're going to sit there and tell me that you never heard a GM or a head coach saying it's his job until he loses it.
You could say that.
That's the same thing being said.
You can say that, but that, to me, does not show support behind him. You know what they should have done? That's like the Mike Lennon scenario.
They
where
sick
like
Eli Manning for...
that's how you get fired. That's how you turn into John Fox. Where you're
Geno
like,
or whatever
signed,
his name, Geno Smith.
This is how you get fired, like John Fox. When they signed Mike Lennon, they're like, he's our starter for now. And then you go and draft Mitch Trubisky, and everyone's like, man... Who was the genius that gave $15 million to Mike Lennon?
He's still living a really good life working for ESPN now.
No, Mike Lennon's playing for Oakland.
No, I'm talking about John Fox.
Oh, okay, yeah, great. But that's how you lose your job, I think, when you come out and you're like, I think it's your job to get behind whoever's going to be the starter. Or in your mind, whoever's going to be the starter. So did Elway know that Case Keenum was going to be a flameout? He might have suspected, like, what did I just buy? Especially when you see him in practice. But you still got to throw that support out there.
No.
You got to be the cheerleader.
Case Keenum is a legitimate starter in this league.
Who said that?
Said no one.
Said me, once upon a time.
You did.
Well, all right. Let's round this out. Kyler Murray. We'll finish up, and then we'll talk Oakland.
So, I'm going to say pump the brakes on saying Kyler Murray is a bust so far. Obviously, if you watched any of the game last night, the Raiders totally played that like a regular season game. They threw blitz packages at them like crazy. The Cardinals were nowhere near ready for that kind of scenario. And it showed. It showed 100%. The Raiders look like they're just one of the best teams in the league. Steven, you're hoping that. But they're also not doing any offense. Like Jake said a little bit a while ago, Rex Ryan said their offense looks bland, not exciting. Well, if Kingsbury is not trying to show anything away, trust me, he's not showing anything right now in that offense. Now, this is week 1 and week 2 of preseason. Week 3, it needs to be opened up. That package needs to be opened up. He needs to be looking down the field. It needs to be some trick plays. Not everything in the book. But if one quarter, one series gives all your tricks away for the season as your offensive plans go, you're in trouble as a head coach in the NFL. You need to have a deep playbook. You need to have so many trick plays you can play the whole entire game with trick plays. So if Kingsbury's trying to hold stuff back, week 3, we better see big giant leaps out of Kyler Murray. Or maybe it is time to be kind of considered about, not that Kyler Murray's not talented, but the matchup between Kingsbury and Kyler Murray.
I'm just saying, don't show anything. You don't have to tip your hand in the preseason.
Yes,
it really doesn't matter. It does. What you do in practice is almost more important than what you see in the games.
You need to show something.
They close those practices. You don't. You don't have to prove anything to anybody during these games.
Something to a defense that isn't on the field with you during practice. You need to show that
I think
against a defense that is trying to outbeat your team, because in practice, even though they talk about, the defense won today, no, they did not. It's a team. You need to go out there and beat another defense that isn't yours. You have to put up points, man. You got to build chemistry. You got to build self-confidence in Kyler Murray. You could not sit there and let him falter during preseason.
To your point, yes, I do want to see a little bit more down the field stuff. I don't want to see them baby him forever, because I think that's kind of what we're doing a little bit with Kyler Murray. We're babying him where everything's like 8 yards away, and it's all curl routes, it's all real short. You're not asking him to take a lot of risks. But if you watch that offensive line, Oakland dominated it. Oakland just blew that offensive line apart and just shredded what the Cardinals had up front. So Kyler Murray was under a lot of pressure. I think, again, part of that, too, was these offensive linemen probably weren't expecting to face 5- and 6-man blitzes, but you have to deal with what you have. I think, again, you don't have to prove anything by week 3. All this, throw it out. I'm not even worried about it. What you need to prove is in practice. Kingsbury needs to be seeing what is Kyler Murray doing in practice when we've got the doors shut, we kick the media out, and we're actually running more complex plays.
I guess it depends.
That, to me, is where you want to see it. And you won't see it as a fan until the first couple weeks. I'm saying don't panic.
I guess it depends on what you want out of week 1, what you want out of week 2. I get that.
Say hi to Frank real quick. Hi, Frank.
What's going on, Frank? Okay. I get it. practice is important to learn and develop with your teammates. But at some point in time, you got to have success against another team's defense. And you cannot do it with the offense that they are running in preseason so far. And week 3, more than likely, he might play the first whole half. He needs to open up that playbook. He needs to develop chemistry and confidence out of this young quarterback.
He can do it, but don't panic, is all I'm saying. If they don't,
and I'm not saying
that's fine. I'm saying they should. I think that's what everyone would like to see. I think that's how you develop your quarterback a little bit in a game situation against a team that's not, already used to facing off against you. I think that would be the ideal situation. I also think the GM, Kilm or whatever his name is for Arizona, would like to see, hey, what did we just go fire Steve Wilkes for? I want to see Cliff Kingsbury is supposed to be this great offensive mind. I want you to prove that. I would like to see it, but again, it's the preseason. All I care about is what's going on behind closed doors. We're not going to see that. I think this is where everybody overreacts a little bit because what we see is bland and it's oatmeal and it doesn't always work. And sometimes teams are ready for it because they're not facing anything incredibly complicated or incredibly difficult. I want to see what this looks like week 1, 2, 3. Because if it looks like this after the first 2 weeks, then you slam on the panic button. You're like, whoa. We bought an offensive guy. What's going on? If week 1 rolls around and everything opens up and they're like, okay, we're cool, then I'm not worried about this. We're not going to be talking about this. That's why I'm like, don't panic here.
No, I'm right there with you.
Let me hit Steven's comment here because he made a decent point, but I do want to counter him a little bit. Steven says Elway only bought a great team when they won the Super Bowl. That he doesn't know what it takes to have long-term success as a GM, and Denver won't get any better until they realize Elway is the issue and fire him. His offensive line has the skill of a peewee football team, and he can't evaluate a QB. The QB thing, you might be right. As for the offensive line, I think whether or not you're finding the right people, he made a great hire bringing in Mike Munchak. Great offensive mind, great offensive line coach. Formerly of the Titans. He was a decent head coach here, too, if you look at what happened when he left. We went from 7 wins to 2. And then Pittsburgh brought him in to be their offensive line coach. And again, he was the guy who fixed Pittsburgh's offensive line. For years, they had underachievers in Pouncey and I'm forgetting a couple names here. DeCastro. Yeah. They had a couple of underachievers. They brought in Munchak as a coach, and all of a sudden things turned around. Yeah. Denver has done that, and they're hoping to do the exact same thing with all these high-priced offensive linemen that they've spent a bunch of picks on.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Steven also goes off and says, I don't think they are one of the best. I think he's talking about when I said the Raiders might be one of the best preseason teams. The scoreboard isn't what matters, but Gruden has his team working their butts off, and that's what he likes to see. The men he has brought in want to be Raiders. That's what you need in this team to get back where they needed to be. Players like Mack and Cooper are great players, but they clearly didn't want to be in Oakland. So Gruden let them go to see the door. He wants men who wants to be on his team. I think that's what every NFL team is.
Hi, Lynn. Glad you're watching as well. Also, going into this, yes, but I will say pump the brakes, Steven, especially because I know you're a Raiders fan and you're probably watching Hard Knocks. That's state-funded news. That is state-funded news. Nothing shows on Hard Knocks that the Raiders don't approve already themselves. I would say just because on paper they're that rah-rah team, we've seen rah-rah teams like the Rams on Hard Knocks that have absolutely fallen to pieces. We've seen other teams that have not quite lived up to the hype. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to say, even though it looks like everybody's bought in, all this stuff, all of that information is only what the Raiders want you to see.
Yeah.
So take a little bit of a break. I hope you're right, but I guess we'll find out. Let's talk Raiders, though. You ready to talk Raiders? Is it time?
It's time.
All right. We'll go into this really quick. As we shift gears, I want to talk about the Raiders and how they did almost nothing well last year. I mean, when you look at their offense, 23rd in yardage, 26th on defense in yardage, and you talk about the scoring, this is why they weren't winning games, right? They were 28th in scoring on offense, which means they only put up about 18 points a game, and they were 32nd in defensive scoring, meaning they allowed teams to score 29.2. How much of that belongs to they're playing the Chiefs and the Chargers twice, and how much of that belongs to they really just aren't – they're one of the worst defenses in the league?
No, last year they were one of the worst defenses in the league.
And they played the Chiefs and Chargers who could just dunk on them all the time.
Unfortunately for them, they played two of the best offenses. I mean, that's why Gruden went out and changed a lot of this stuff. He went out and brought in LaMarcus Joyner. He went out and drafted not Williams, the defensive end.
Cleveland Farrell,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a change of atmosphere in the Oakland organization, which soon to be Las Vegas organization.
Sorry, Oakland.
Yeah, sorry, Oakland. Steven does go off and says he does not watch Hard Knocks. I don't blame him. I also did not watch it when the Chiefs were doing it. Yeah. I couldn't do it.
I'm not a big fan of it. Again, I think it's all what the team wants you to hear. It's like when you hear the coach come on there and say, "Oh yeah, everybody did great at practice today." That's what they want you to know. So I watch it, but it's one of those things that even though I watch it, I believe me, I'm trying to take those rose-colored glasses off and say, what's the truth here? And you don't ever know. You can't trust them because everything that you see, literally every scene in this is watched by the Raiders, and they say you can show this, you can't show that. So, and every organization, the Raiders aren't alone in that. So, it's entertainment, but that's all I count it for. That's it. It's just something fun to watch.
I do want to get in also. I meant to bring this guy up as well as Burfict. Vontaze Burfict. This guy is not a liked player in the NFL. A lot of teams and a lot of players do not like him. And we were talking about this prior to the show.
Right.
This is a guy you want in your locker room because he's going to fight for your players. He's going to sit there and be that dirty player that sometimes you just need to have.
And he's an enforcer.
And they also did that on the offensive line with Richie Cognito. That guy also is on the opposite side of the field, and he is one of those dirty players, one of those players that go out there and kind of do those dirty things. You kind of want that in your organization. That's quite what you see with the Colts offensive line with Quentin Nelson.
Okay, hold on. I think the levels of dirt we're talking about.
What I'm talking about is
Quentin Nelson's like a grinder. We saw Quentin Nelson come out and just like maul some people.
My point is sometimes you want that guy,
but we never saw like
sit there and push the edge just a little bit.
But we've never seen like the incognito and these guys.
The Raiders, they went to the extreme on that.
I think we're confusing hard work with dirty here a little bit here. I don't want to say Quentin Nelson's and this is a Titans fan telling you. I don't want to say Quentin Nelson is a dirty player.
I didn't mean to put
He's a grinder for sure. He's one of those guys that mauls people, and both those guys are maulers on top of it.
No,
but when I watch them play, there's a lot of extracurricular activity when you talk about Vontaze Burfict and Richie Incognito. There's not that extracurricular activity when we're talking about Quentin Nelson. So I don't think it's fair to him to put him in that group. I really don't.
What I am saying is sometimes
he
you
can
need
be the
that
hard-nosed guy
that pushes the edge just a little bit. I will not call Nelson dirty, but he is a guy that at some point in time in his career might be that incognito kind of player where he is pushing that edge. Because you need that guy at some point in time on your team. And the Raiders went out and got two of them on both sides of the field.
And we'll see if you can keep under control. Because both of them have spiraled off with personal issues too. So this is, again, maybe Oakland's making that risky play saying we've got the Chargers and we have the Chiefs who are infinitely better than us talent-wise, so we just need to out-nasty them. We need to get nasty players who are going to go out-physical these guys and find a way to come away with wins, because you can do that. If you can't beat them, bully them, right? That's one of the oldest things in the NFL. I'm a Titans fan. That's what we do, right? If you can't beat them, you bully them. So I think that's a lot of what we see. Now, Chris said the Skins need Burfict. Linebackers are lacking. Well, don't cut Zach Brown and don't get rid of Reuben Foster. And I think the linebacking core there would be a little bit better, at least on the inside. That's one of my criticisms here of the Redskins, especially when you look at what Philadelphia paid to bring in Zach Brown. You could have kept him around.
Yeah, no doubt. Steven, you're killing me on your long comments.
I'm going to read it. I'll read it here. Steven says, last year's team was gutted by Gruden. He wanted his own team. He did this the first time in Oakland, and it worked perfectly. Gruden made Rich Gannon into an MVP. He says he trusts Gruden, and he's not expecting a Super Bowl this year, but he expects a much, much better team and record. Gruden will surprise the league, just like he did the first time in Oakland, and agreed Burfict is going to be great on this team. He's a true Raider. What do you mean true Raider? I think he mimics a lot of the fans where you're going to see some dirty hits and stuff like that. But look, I think it depends who you ask. I think there's a lot. This is kind of like the Melvin Gordon thing. There's this boom and bust potential is everywhere. There's a low floor to this where Vontaze Burfict rides off the rails. He puts a couple bad penalties up there. He has some personal issues, and all this blows up. But there's also a very high ceiling, Steven, where you get the best of Vontaze Burfict, a hard-hitting linebacker that can cover the pass as well, and is going to set the tone for a defense that needs a leader.
He also goes off and says, week one, the Broncos are not only losing, but they're ready for a complete beatdown.
We'll talk about that in a sec. I do want to finish that out real quick. As for whether this team is going to take great leaps and bounds forward, I agree with you. I think Gruden wanted his guys, and I think he's done a decent job of bringing his guys in. It's easy to do when you've got 3 first-round picks and a second, right? Yeah. When you've got 4 picks in the top 60, that's pretty easy.
Kyle, I'm glad you could join us, man. I'm glad you also approve and say the stuff is great. I hope you can join us more. We're here 3 times a week, and possibly could be 4 going into the season.
And if you haven't, man, click on our name, click on like page, because we want to hear from you. We want to get everybody's take on everything going on in the world of sports, because we know our stuff, and we know you do too, and we want to get your take. A little bit. All right. I'm not sure what noise that was, but
we'll
move forward here. Steven says he thinks the Skins, but they need a QB. They're hoping Dwayne Haskins is the guy. I want to see improvement out of him too. Let's round this off, because Oakland has tried to buy a team in the offseason. We'll finish this and we'll go into the schedule real quick. Yeah. Oakland has tried to buy a team. When you talk about Trent Brown coming in for the highest per year salary for an offensive tackle, this is huge money and a huge investment for a guy that's only been successful in New England for 1 year.
And he's on the wrong side of the line. He's
that just shows
right tackle.
But it shows you how important protecting Derek Carr is to the Raiders.
It's super important.
And if you got the money, what do you do? What do you do, Drew? 4 years, $66 million is a lot to give to a right tackle. You're 100% right. And let's just go down the list, right? Terrell Williams, wide receiver out of Los Angeles Chargers. Now, see, I got it this time. 4 years, $44 million. Then you're talking about LaMarcus Joyner, free safety, 4 years, $42 million. They are throwing the wallets. Antonio Brown got a $30-some million contract. They're throwing their money at high-value players that they believe can come in and set the tone, I believe.
This team has improved offensively. I'll give you that right now. I think their offensive line is going to take a leap forward. I wouldn't say bounds and leaps forward. They still need to develop chemistry, but I think this offensive line is going to show improvement from last year, because there's no doubt about it. That was one of their weaknesses offensively, is they didn't give their receiving core enough time to get open. There's too much pressure on Derek Carr, hence why he was getting hurt all the darn time. This is a change, and obviously we talked about this too. Gruden loves his veteran receivers. Bringing in someone like Antonio Brown and Williams is great, but you have to develop that chemistry with Derek Carr. This offensive line and this receiving core and the young running back in Josh Jacobs, this offense should be able to stick up to other offenses, especially in their division, like the Chiefs and the Chargers, maybe make it more of a shootout.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they did the same thing last year, and it didn't work, right? They brought in Brandon LaFell. They brought in Martavis Bryant. They brought in Jordy Nelson. Each and every one of those guys did not pan out, not in the way that they hoped. So they're trying it again with Tyrell Williams and Antonio Brown, and they're hoping that some of this sticks. Even a guy like Ryan Grant, they're trying to refresh this wide receiving core with guys who have been around and they've seen succeed, rather than throw the picks at the position and hope that you can get a guy out of college who can kind of develop. Because receiver can be one of those positions you need 2, 3, 4 years to find yourself. So I don't hate that strategy. I don't like the money, because now they're committed, right? If Antonio Brown and Tyrell Williams don't work out, you're in some trouble. Because you've given both these guys, I think Antonio Brown got a 3-year contract and Tyrell Williams got a 4. I know you can cut him, but man, you're still on the hook for some of that.
Ken wants to know, how about the Chiefs game tomorrow?
Survive it. That's all I can say. It doesn't matter. Survive it.
Just be healthy.
Exactly.
Just be healthy. I know you'll watch every down in that game. That's just how hardcore of a fan you are.
Finally, let me round it out and say Brandon Marshall was a great addition on the offense or on the defensive side of the ball, bringing in a veteran middle linebacker who's going to be able to help you in run support. Is going to be what Oakland needs when you talk about them being the 30th rushing defense last year. I think their defensive line is still in vast need of help. Even if Cleveland Farrell turns out to be good, they need a lot of help on the defensive side of the ball, and the front four especially.
Yeah.
I think this guy is the guy who's going to be able to help those guys out.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about paying him $1 million that Denver wouldn't give him, this is a great move.
Steven also goes and says the contracts we're talking about are the norm nowadays. NFL contracts are insane.
But you don't give out like 5 of them in an offseason.
And he also goes, Gruden is going to make
4, I should say.
Make it work. Like he did with Gannon for like nothing. Carr is going to have the best season so far in his career. That's kind of big words, because Carr at one point in time, I think like 3-4 years ago, was MVP talk.
Yeah, he was an MVP candidate. Didn't win it, but he's an MVP candidate 100%. So maybe they do get the best out of Derek Carr, or maybe they say it's time to move on. Because at this point, after this year, they're going to be in a financial situation where getting rid of Derek Carr is not the game breaker. Right. As for those contracts, it can happen in the NFL. Usually you see teams towards the bottom offer this kind of money to free agents, but when you go and bring on 3, 4, 5 of these guys, sometimes 2 or 3 of them don't work out, and a lot of your investment kind of doesn't pay off. So they're gambling here, Drew.
Terrell Williams, 4 years, 44 million, a little over that. That might be a little bit high for a guy that honestly has not, he's
dominated. 11 million a year.
I don't have the stats in front of me, but honestly, on top of my head, I can't think of him ever having a 1,000-yard receiving season.
Right.
I can't think of
it. But he's a quality guy that
he
was
is a quality
quietly
guy.
worked hard
He has.
with Phillip Rivers.
Which is, in my opinion, a lot better quarterback than Derek Carr so far in his career. Yes.
Better for sure.
Yes.
Better for sure.
Yes.
I think
you can't argue that.
Well, first 2 years, Derek Carr. I don't know. I'm not going to say
you literally say that
MVP candidate. What did you just
Phillip
get done
Rivers
saying?
Bringing his team into the playoffs with LaDainian Tomlinson and Antonio Gate. Come on, man. You cannot sit there and say
Derek
those guys didn't.
Derek Carr with Michael Crabtree, who was never a great receiver except for when Derek Carr made him look like it, and Amari Cooper, who he basically until he started dropping the ball was. A great receiver for him. Okay, look.
What I said, I want to hold on
Phillip
before
Rivers
you go
is
forward.
Still better. Phillip Rivers is still
what
better.
I said, yet.
I think we're going to disagree on the gap.
Yet. Because Phillip Rivers so far is a Hall of Fame quarterback or could be a Hall of Fame quarterback. Derek Carr is not a Hall of Fame quarterback right now.
Could be, sure. Do I think he gets there? Probably eventually. And you're absolutely right. But what's Phillip Rivers got? Like an extra 12 years on him?
Yeah,
10 years.
Like that.
So we'll see. I think Derek Carr is just fine. And again, I think it all comes down to what we believe on the gap to actually be between Oakland's up and coming budding quarterback and what San Diego has known that they've had for years and years and years now. I'm still going Phillip Rivers. If you ask me who would I want to have my quarterback for the Super Bowl, I'd say Phillip Rivers 100%. But I like Derek Carr. I'm still a Derek Carr guy. I think he's been dealt a bad hand.
I like him too.
I know. I think he's been dealt a bad hand, and I think he's one of those guys that if you put an optimal wide receiving group around him, like hopefully Tyrell Williams and Antonio Brown turn into.
And beyond that, he's a great teammate.
We could see some fireworks.
He's a great face for the NFL as far as the league goes. Steven goes off and says Carr had 1 interception in the last 10 games of the season last year. And was throwing trash.
2 absolute trash.
Throwing 2 absolute trash. I meant to have the word 2 in there. I'll get back to you on Carr later this year. Listen,
we're both Derek Carr guys.
Yeah, I like Derek Carr. To be honest with you, when Patrick Mahomes was not there and we had Alex Smith as a Chiefs fan here, and you guys had Derek Carr, I was like, you got to be kidding me.
For sure.
This is not what I want in my division.
All right, Drew, let's do schedule if you're ready.
Oh, I'm always ready.
All right, we'll move on. Again, their draft, we didn't love it. We think they reached on some guys. But if Gruden has this magic that he can find a way to pick out diamonds in the rough, it's going to be good. Cleveland Farrell, again, that was a reach when you're talking about Josh Allen, one of the 3 guys that everyone agreed are like the super talents in the draft, still on the board. Oakland chose to pass on him and take the Clemson pass rusher instead. They also took Josh Jacobs higher than I would have liked to see a running back come off the board in this year's draft. But who knows? Maybe he turns into that next guy. Tires. I will say this: bet on him in fantasy because I don't see people taking a lot of touches away from him.
Doug Martin, I believe, is still there, but
who cares? We saw Doug Martin there last year, and he couldn't beat Marshawn Lynch out. So a 32 or 33-year-old Marshawn Lynch.
half the season.
Yeah, but what did he do?
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. What's he going to do this year?
With a garbage offensive line.
I like Doug Martin even as a player. I used to like Doug Martin, but by now I think that's probably over the hill. I'm going to say bet on Josh Jacobs in fantasy.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't love it as a pick, though, to be honest with you. First round, when you're talking about the running backs that you probably could have got in the 3rd and 4th round that we talked about, like Henderson and everything else, there are other guys on this board that could make probably 80%, 90% of Jacobs' impact, and you didn't have to spend the first on it.
Right.
Also, Jonathan Abram, there were other safeties you probably could have went with, but I don't think this is a bad pick. We were talking about him being a bottom first rounder. They took him in the bottom first round. I think this is the best one. Out of the 3.
Out of the 2, I think so
3.
too, but it doesn't really make sense. When you look back at Carl Joseph, I get that's not a Gruden guy that was drafted, and they went out and got LaMarcus Joyner. You don't start 3 safeties.
Right.
So one of those guys is going to have to play nickel, dime at some point in time. Who does that? To sit
Tennessee.
there. No. Who does that out of those 3?
Well, you don't spend the first round pick on it. Right.
Exactly. And that issue is when you sit there and put him in a dime package or you sit there and put him in a nickel package, that if it's a young guy, it staples his development into the safety position.
Right, absolutely. And again, Trayvon Mullen coming off as the 8th pick in the 2nd round, I think you could have gone a lot of other directions. With all those great corners on the board, you could have found a way to get somebody else. I think again, Trayvon Mullen might be a good cornerback towards the bottom half of the second round, but when you're talking about guys like Byron Murphy being available, Greedy Williams being available, or at least within range where you can go trade up and get these guys, I don't love this pick. Yeah. I don't. So I think Oakland kind of, I don't want to say struck out, but they definitely didn't do a good job in their draft. They're Gruden guys. Maybe Gruden guys turn into what John Gruden wants to do here.
Steven says Gruden doesn't do what makes sense. He does what he wants. That's why he says we, as Raider fans, love him.
I guess we'll see. This might be like the "I told you so" moment, but it's gonna be one way or the other.
I'm just
right?
saying that's also kind of what they said, and then halfway through last year they're kind of like off with his head.
Yeah, exactly. And then they were like, "Wait, we gave him a 10-year contract.
We gave him 10 years. Oh crap!
Oh yeah, we got 9 more to go." Let's go to the schedule, because week 1, they start off with a couple division games. Well, I'm sorry, the first couple weeks, they start with some division games, going against the Broncos and the Chiefs at home. And Drew, it's a tough way to start the schedule. This first 8 games might be the roughest in football.
Yeah, no, it's tough. And we're going to upset Steven here, because he already said it a little bit earlier in the show that the Raiders are going to come out and spank the Broncos. We're going to pump the brakes on that. We actually think the Broncos defense, because they've been together, has shown that they can do well. And that offensive line is going to struggle against these 2 pass rushers. And don't forget, Chris Harris Jr. is one of the best man-to-man cover corners in the league. Antonio Brown, yeah, he'll probably win 50% of the downs against Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown versus Harris. But Derek Carr is going to have a lot of pressure on him. It doesn't matter how Antonio Brown can beat Harris or not. Problem is he had the time for Antonio Brown to get open.
Absolutely. The other thing I'm going to say here about Denver is the running game is going to be a challenge for this defensive line that's still trying to find itself. I get it. You've got the good linebackers who are going to support, but linebackers by themselves don't stop the run when you're having major holes open up. I think Brandon Marshall and Vontaze Burfict will stop the bleeding, but when you're talking about Denver on a fresh offense, all these offensive linemen are ready to play, able to run the ball with both Philip Lindsay and Rolls-Royce Freeman, I think they're going to have some trouble stopping these guys. I think this one is probably a close loss. We're going to see whoever Denver starts at quarterback, whether it's Joe Flacco or if they roll the dice and say Drew Lock's going to start from week 1. They shouldn't, but who knows? Maybe he has a great week 3 and they're like, let's do it, of the preseason. I think this is probably one of those games that Oakland's defense isn't going to have the muscle to keep up with an offense even like Denver has.
And my last
Speaking of offenses they're not keeping up with, week 2.
I do want to go one more point into week 1. Emmanuel Sanders is coming back healthy. And when he is healthy, he is one of the best route runners in the deep ball out of almost any receiver. He just hasn't had a quarterback throwing the ball. What does Joe Flacco have? What is his big thing is? He's got a big arm.
Yeah.
And I think Emmanuel Sanders and that secondary who's trying to figure out who they are, those safeties, yeah, they're going to be the guys that are second on there, but those corners are what's weak on that secondary.
Right.
It's going to be an issue. And a healthy Emmanuel Sanders, I think they had the chance to win, man. I think the Raiders are going to take a step back in week 1.
I do too, and I think week 2 is just as tough. I think you go or 10 times worse, because you got to go and face the Kansas City Chiefs before you found your rhythm with all these new John Gruden players in there. You get to play that one as the home one. If I was going to pick an upset, I'd say if you get like a week 14, week 15, week 16 game, and the Chiefs have been through that hard slog of having to play the top teams in the AFC, and they got to go to Oakland, and now you're starting to gel as a team, maybe then you surprise them.
Yeah, but unfortunately for you, you're playing your home game early.
Exactly. If this was the other way around, I'd say maybe they have a chance. Maybe that that any given Sunday kind of idea, but we're talking about one of the best put together rosters, at least offensively, in the NFL, to one that's still trying to find itself in Oakland. I see it as back-to-back losses. I think they start 0-2 this year. And then after that, they get a little bit of relief when they go and surprise the Vikings in week 3.
Yeah, and the only thing I want to say about the week 2 game is I think it's a shootout. I think that the Chiefs defense is in the right direction, but it's the same scenario as the Raiders. There's a lot of chemistry that needs to be built. There's a lot of things that they need to just work out the kinks. I think it's a shootout. Who wins in a shootout between the Chiefs and the Raiders? It's the Chiefs. I think this is a high-scoring game, but unfortunately for a Raiders fan, this is a Chiefs win. In week 3, when they go on the road finally in Minnesota, I think this is when they start pulling things together.
Hey, Jeremy. Good to see you, man. let me just read this real quick. He says, Jake is number 1. See, I knew you were a smart guy, Jeremy. I'm glad you're back, man. That was maybe the best comment I've read tonight. I've seen some good ones out of Steven. I've seen Ian make some good ones. I've seen a couple other guys make some good comments. Sharif made 1 or 2.
Not only are you off the Thanksgiving list, you're not getting a Christmas present this year, Jeremy. No more Christmas presents.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Santa definitely rewarding you for that comment. So
Santa's not real.
all right. Sorry if you're 12 and you're listening to this. That's when I found out. So, anyway, going back into the Raiders, because we do need to talk about Raiders. Santa may not be real, but John Gruden is. I think the Vikings are going to have a hard time here. I do. This is an offense that might surprise a defense that really struggled last year containing high-powered offenses. And let's pump the brakes. I'm not calling Oakland high-powered on the offensive side of the ball yet, but they've got some guys who can hurt you.
Yeah.
Now with 2 receivers, running game as well, hopefully with Josh Jacobs, this might be the offense that keeps up and maybe stuns Kirk Cousins and company.
Yeah, what I see this as in week 3 is finally enough time for the Raiders offense to kind of start clicking. Start going, we are better than our 0-2 record.
See, he just broke his heart. Jeremy didn't know Santa wasn't real. What?
Jeremy's a jerk.
It was us the whole time.
Jeremy is a jerk until I'm number 1. All right. No, for real.
You're not a jerk. You're a brilliant fan. Know exactly what you're talking about. Colts still aren't going to beat the Titans, but you know what you're talking about, Jeremy. That's all I can say.
I think it takes that long in a regular season. That's why I'm sitting there so hyped about what I was talking about earlier with Kyler Murray is you start need to opening up that package a little bit, allow these people to develop chemistry, especially a lot more than a young quarterback than a seasoned veteran like Derek Carr is. But he has a lot of weapons that are brand new to him. Antonio Brown, Terrell Williams. He's got an offensive line that I think has – you've got a center that's been there for like 2 years. You've got a left tackle that's been there for 1 year. And then pretty much – and then Gabe Jackson, who's probably the best guard in the league. I might put the brakes a little bit on that. But he's going to be the highest paid guard, or is the highest paid guard, actually, I believe. I mean – they got some points or some new fixtures in there that need time to develop. And maybe week 3, they are upset about their 0-2 start. They can beat a team who honestly should be a lot better than them. But I believe that the Raiders can beat the Vikings in week 3.
And then week 4 after that, you're staying on the road, going to face the Colts here. Look, Jeremy, I know you like the Colts, man. I'm going to tell you this. I think the Colts are going to dominate this game. I think if you walk away with the win out of one of these first couple games, you count yourself lucky because, again, the Raiders drew the short end of the stick when it comes to scheduling. I'm going to read you these games. 1 through 8, you get the Broncos, Chiefs, Vikings, Colts, Bears, Packers, Texans, and everyone except for the Broncos should have playoff aspirations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't get an easy break here from the beginning. You get a bye week in there too, but still, when you go and face the Colts on the road and then the Bears after that, it's tough sledding, man. I think both of these teams, Andrew Luck will probably be back and probably be healthy by this point. I think they're going to be too much for you. You're not out shooting a guy like that. And on top of it, the Bears defense, it's time to find out what you just bought in Trent Brown when you go and face the Bears.
Yeah, I'm good with that being said. To be honest with you, when you go into week 6 and that's your bye week, you are not blessed by the NFL gods. The schedule does not benefit you. I think this bye week is way too early, and if you have playoff aspirations, this is too early.
Right.
And like you were getting
Unless you take that bad injury early, where like Antonio Brown needs a couple weeks to come back. That's the only time this benefits you.
Right, absolutely. But after that bye week, they go into Green Bay, which I still consider one of the toughest places to play in the NFL. You gotta face the Packers and an Aaron Rodgers that a lot of people are saying this might be one of the last years Aaron Rodgers is a legitimate starter in Green Bay because they're thinking about drafting another
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
That's a lot of talk right now. He's got a back injury. He's not playing in the preseason. Do these injuries start developing? And they're like, hey, we need to move forward. This was the exact same age that Brett Favre was when they drafted Aaron Rodgers. Just something to think about.
Something to think about for sure. But I think, again, the Packers offense is going to have more going on for it. They're going to have Devontae Adams. It's going to be really, really difficult to shut out for Oakland's secondary. I also think when you look at the Packers defense being a little bit better, they're going to get after Derek Carr a little bit. They're not going to be great, but they'll probably be somewhere in mid-range, and I think they're going to be able to make an impact against an Oakland offense. They might struggle a little bit at times keeping Derek Carr clean. So, again, maybe this turns into a shootout, but I think right now I got to pick Green Bay. But the next game, again, finally the last of the first 8 weeks, Houston on the road. Houston was a playoff team. They won the AFC South last year. They won 10 games, I think it was. Even though they're going to have competition, they're going to be looking this is a must-win game because the Colts are probably going to be good. The Titans likely will be good. The Jacksonville Jaguars might even be good themselves. The Texans are going to come into this really, really hungry, and I think Oakland after this start might go into this saying, we need to upset them. We need to upset them.
Well, what's the biggest weakness the Texans have defensively? That's their secondary. What have the Raiders tried to work on this year, another year in a row? That's fix their receiving core. When you add someone like Antonio Brown, this is a game where Antonio Brown could win. That I honestly, truly have said this since they brought him in. Antonio Brown can win you probably 2 games out of your schedule. I think this is a game where Antonio Brown might have that 10 reception, 200-yard, 3 touchdown kind of game. This is that game where I would sit there and tell you, as a daily fantasy player, to sit there and draft Antonio Brown against the Houston Texans.
Yep.
Rarely do I see this game being a low-scoring affair. I think this is being the shootout, and when you have a number 1 receiver like Antonio Brown, you throw the ball in his direction.
And he also says if Antonio Brown goes after Derek Carr, if he's not happy at this time, and Green Bay kills Oakland, I agree. By now, you need to have Antonio Brown in the offense, but with what you paid him and Terrell Williams, they're both going to be heavily, heavily involved. I think those are looks 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then after that, you look to the dump off. I think we're going to see those 2 guys make a big impact. I think Antonio Brown, unless his feet really, really are that messed up, probably by this point of the year, he's back and where he's at. I mean, who knows? There's a chance he's walking on coals all year long, right? He had to have the bottom. He said, I had to have the bottom of my feet circumcised. That is disgusting. That is disgusting, okay?
Disgusting.
Terrible analogy. Terrible everything. I don't want to see him.
You could have just said layers of skin taken off.
I know. But if Antonio Brown does recover, by now he's in the game plan. And I think this is what it takes to beat Houston. I disagreed with you before when you said Antonio Brown's a 2-game swing just by adding him to Oakland. But this is one of those games where maybe he puts up the 200 yards or 183 and 2 touchdowns that we see Oakland hang around and beat a team like Houston that lets teams hang with them.
Jeremy, it is ooh.
It very you. Yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of interested if Steven is still there. He was with us through the whole entire prior to the schedule. I just want to know your thoughts and what you're thinking about right now, because going into week 9, we have your Oakland Raiders 2-5. You said it was going to be a significant change in the schedule. He's here. He just finally posted. He said, I just read that he should be back at full speed tomorrow. He's fine.
I hope so. I do, because the league's better with Antonio Brown, right?
No, it is. But don't believe everything you read.
Exactly. The other thing I'll say is this schedule gets a lot easier on the back half. We're talking about 7 of their first 8 games are playoff contenders. After that, they go and face the Lions at home, the Chargers and the Bengals at home. They get that nice, long home stretch, unless I missed writing an away game, because that doesn't sound right. But I don't think I did.
No, that's right.
They get a great home stretch out there in Oakland.
I do want to say something real quick about layers of skin taken off the bottom of his feet, especially when it becomes that tender part of the skin. I'm pretty sure all you guys had blisters for whatever reason that you get them. That skin
it's like that, but the whole bottom of your foot.
That skin is super tender, but you know where the most nerve ends are in your whole entire body? It's the bottom of your feet. And there's a reason why your feet become calloused as you walk on them. When you take that stuff off, and that's where, I mean, that everyone knows Antonio Brown, the reason why he's as good as he is the speed and the way he cuts. Man, I don't know if he's going to be fine by next week. I think it's going to take into the regular season before you get 100% of Antonio Brown.
I think so, too. Steven also says the Raiders will be 3-4 at this point. He's realistic, but they're going to beat up on Denver, and he'd put money on that one. Maybe.
Beer bet.
I hope you're right. Well, you go ahead.
Beer bet, Steven. I got you, man. Beer bet. You're going to sit there and tell me that their record is 3-4, and I'll give you, we'll change out any of those other games. I don't think they'll be 3-4, and I'll give you, if it's Denver winning that game or losing that game, I'll figure out something for you, man. How's that sound?
Absolutely. Maybe a T-shirt. By the way, we have the T-shirts kind of up and bare bones running. If you want them, we have a website on there. Click on our name, and you'll see it up there. We're on Teespring, which is a drop shipping website or whatever, so they're going to handle a lot of our T-shirt stuff for us. It's very bare bones, but I know people were asking about it, so I did literally the best.
Well, guys, I'm telling you right now, we have had struggles with apparel. It's been...
We've had like 5 people that were supposed to do it for us, and then haven't done it for us. It's been something
else. I guess Sports Around the Bar is not important to them as it is to you and me.
Anyway, it's on there, Jeremy. Any size you want, you should be able to get through them. They do massive sets of T-shirts. They deal probably more T-shirts than anyone else.
Dude, you are not that big. What are you gonna? As a nightgown? You gonna use it as some kind of blanket? You are not that big. I've seen your picture, dude.
Rude.
You are not that big.
Rude. Well, motivational.
You are a
motivational
young,
and nice.
skinny, handsome man.
Also, Jeremy says
Can I be the number one guy now?
You can't. Jeremy says also that he gets blisters from driving 11 hours a day. Jeremy, I get you. Now imagine you got to go outrun somebody that's 26 and in the prime of their life, and those blisters are on the bottom of your feet, all over the bottom of your feet. That's why I think Antonio Brown's story is more of a deal than what we've talked about. I hope it's not that severe. I do, because, again, this is what derails a 31-year-old's career. I guess we'll find out. That's all I can say. I guess in the next couple of weeks or two, we'll see how bad Antonio Brown actually got hurt in that cryo chamber.
Steven, I have seen your paintings, man. You're definitely talented. Never knew that in high school about you. You didn't seem like the artistic kind of guy. We wish you were a graphic designer in computers. That's what we wish you were. I'm just throwing that out there.
If you want to talk, shoot us a message. We'll talk. I'll talk to anyone. We've talked to everybody, and they're like, we got this. We're fine. And then, gone.
We didn't offer enough.
I guess not. I didn't offer him it.
You need to offer your body next time.
20 grand on the table. Take it or leave it.
No, like literally your
Oh,
body.
just my body? All right. Cheeks up. Let's go.
Jeremy,
I didn't say that. Not on the internet.
You are a sexy, thin young man. Don't ever say that about yourself.
We love you for who you are, too, by the way. It's what on the inside that what counts. Anyway, real quick here. Guys, fantastic outpouring of support and everything. We appreciate you being here. If you do want to play fantasy with us, again, all you have to do is click on our name. $1 to St. Jude's get you in our fantasy league. That's it. $1 right now. We'll get you in.
I wish we could make it lower. I mean, I know tough times. We know exactly what that is. But, man, just think about it. Not only is it $1 to St. Jude's, you get to join.
Jeremy's dunking on you over here. Still says I'm number one. Continue, though. I don't want to take away from St. Jude's. Keep going.
No,
that was a bad move by me.
Jeremy ruined it.
No, that was a bad move. St. Jude's.
He did say today, though.
Nobody likes.
What is it? He's finally wearing a black T-shirt. I always wear black, Jeremy. It's thinning.
Nobody likes sick kids. So if you do give any money to St. Jude's, know that it's going to a great place. We're not taking a dime of it, okay?
No, not a single.
We
talked about it. We said, should we make it a pot?
And then
we're like, no.
we talk about giving back and stuff, and then we're like, internet gambling. That's kind of a minus for the federal government.
Guys, I know $1 can be a lot, but how important that dollar goes. St. Jude's is one of the best organizations to give a huge amount, if not all of it, straight back to the children's development and trying to beat these diseases and cancer that these young children go through.
They're one of the best charities out there.
And not only that, no, you're right. And not only that, you get to play fantasy football with us. You get to enjoy that elite crew.
Jeremy, you can donate whatever you want. All you have to do, click on our name, click on posts. It's up there because I share it every day. You'll see a thing that says donate to St. Jude's where I'm explaining the rules to fantasy. Literally click that tab. Facebook will take care of it. They don't take a dime. We don't take a dime. And even more so, St. Jude's, I think, is one of the best charities for the money that you give actually going to what they support. A lot of charities, I don't want to call it embezzling, Drew, but it's embezzling where they're like, we're paying ourselves, we're paying all these people. So 40 or 60 cents of what you give goes to what you're actually paying for. St. Jude's is like 98 cents or something like that. 98 cents on the dollar, 95 cents on the dollar goes to sick children and helping find cures for these terrible childhood diseases. You give whatever you're comfortable giving, Jeremy, and we'll appreciate that for you doing it. Just let us know if you want to play Facebook with us. Shoot us a message, shoot us a comment.
With us?
If you want to play fantasy football with us, sorry.
You can play Facebook, too, if you want.
Facebook's already playing us, Drew. I don't think we need any more of that.
You mean it's the best
platform out there?
Yeah.
If you want to play fantasy with us, though, Jeremy, just let us know, and we'll put you on the list, man. We're taking our top 11 donators.
All right, let's go back into Week 9, Week 10, and Week 11, where they get a home stretch, and they get to face teams like the Lions and like the Bengals, where they should be winnable games. They also find themselves facing the Chargers, a division rival in Week 10. But we all know that it's all in California, and when it becomes a home game, regardless if it's the 49ers, if it's the Chargers, or Raiders, there is an equal amount of fans across the board when it comes to those home games.
Yeah, and I think the Lions will be a struggle because Kerryon Johnson's going to run the rock a little bit. You're going to have trouble up front with him. I think they're going to keep Stafford safe against this defensive front that Oakland can put up there, and they're going to outshoot you. I think we're not talking about how good Detroit's defense might actually get with Matt Patricia. They've spent a lot of assets on it. We know they have Darius Slay, great cornerback, that fixed this defensive line, it seems like, with Trey Flowers, Snacks Harrison, and now Mike Daniels from Green Bay. They've got some names on this defense now.
Yeah,
I think Oakland's going to struggle in that game. Going to Chargers really quick, I see that as a loss because, again, you're just outshot here. They're further along in development than you are. It's cyclical. Eventually, you'll come around. You'll be the team to beat. They'll be the team on the rebuild. Right now, Oakland is still trying to rebuild, and the Chargers are where they need to be. Finally, the Bengals.
Come here, baby. Keep going, man.
Finally, the Bengals are one of those teams that you can beat, and this may be what gets your season back on track, because you don't want to be the worst. Not forever.
Come here, baby. Come get on live TV.
You don't want to be the worst team in the NFL forever. You want to be the team that can come out and win some of these games, right? Right, Ayla? You want to win sometimes?
She's telling her analysis. It's important for her to do it. Guys, we just want to reiterate one more time about St. Jude's Children's Hospital, how important it is to have a healthy child. Luckily for me, my child's healthy. But not everyone gets that break, guys. The donations are so important. It's going to sick children and hopefully make them better. It's super important. I know we joke around here a lot, and we have a good time about talking with you guys about sports, but how we want to iterate how important it is to donate. And I know that a lot of people want to donate and want to play, but it's so important. That's why it was a must for us to make it a donation thing.
That's why we said it's got to be St. Jude.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. We'll finish out the Raiders, though, if you're ready.
Let's do
Ayla,
it.
can we finish out the Raiders? Do you mind? All right, we'll finish them out really quick. We're going to talk about Week 12, 13, and 14 because, again, this is kind of the tale of two teams. You have the Jets and the Titans. The Jets are on the road. The Titans are at home, but both these teams play really, really tough defense and are going to be too much, I think, for this Oakland offense. And then the reverse. You get the Chiefs in the middle there that play great offense as well. You're not going to be able to go into this with like a solid game plan. It's going to have to be, we need to find a way to outshoot this Jets defense. We need to find a way to outshoot this Titans defense. And then we need to find a way to stop the Chiefs on offense. It's a big ask for a team like Oakland right now.
It really is. And to be honest with you, when I think about the New York Jets versus the Raiders, I think if that was an Oakland game, I think Oakland would win that game. But I do think the Jets fan base is very behind what the Jets are doing.
Can I wear those? No, you're wearing them? Okay, sorry.
And
continue.
Oh,
she's my daughter now.
Okay. Well,
all right.
You can
sit with me?
You can start paying for everything.
Go ahead. That's the plan.
But unfortunately for the Oakland Raiders, it is in New York. And, of course, when you look at the Chiefs, you look at the Titans, you're just talking about teams that are just a step above right now. Even though the Titans are looking at their quarterback situation, they're kind of going, well, we don't know what we want and what we have. I think it's a change. I got it, man. Go ahead.
I think you're right, man. I absolutely think you're right. I think, again, it's a change and challenge with all of these teams. The Jets are going to probably play better defense than we saw last year. They're probably going to run the ball with Le'Veon Bell. The Titans is the same way. Great defense, great running game. Can Oakland match up with him? I'm going to say no for the most part here, except I think this is a three-game loss streak. I do. I think they're going to come up against the Chiefs after that. It's going to be almost culture shock when you play the Jets that want to run and play physically. Then you get the Chiefs that just want to outrun you and throw the ball all over the block. This is going to be a really, really tough set of games for the Oakland Raiders. And I think going into the last three, they're going to have an easier time.
Ivy, thank you. She is adorable. I love her to death. Obviously, she's my child. Emily, it was a celebrity guest appearance, but now she's gone. She had way too much important things to do. Play. And Cody,
good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Why do you miss every Cody, you make me mad.
He's like Jeremy. He just shows up fashionably late, but we're glad you're here.
We want to hear about what you think, man. Where
Absolutely.
are you?
Absolutely. Jeremy, Cody, a little more prompt would be better, but we understand you're busy guys, and we're glad that you're here now. How about that? See, that's why I'm number one. I understand. I do. We're glad you guys are here.
Why don't you just rub it in my face a little bit more?
I'm going to dunk on you every chance I get. I mean, we're talking like LeBron. We're talking like Shaq, just like square. I can't say that. Never mind. Not on Facebook. It's an ugly dunk. How about that? You guys know what I'm talking about. Google it. Anyway.
I'm not like Kevin Hart, okay? I'm a little bit taller than him.
Shaq worst dunks. Google it. Anyway, we'll talk about this later. We're going to talk about these last few weeks here because they face the Jaguars at home, the Chargers on the road, and the Broncos on the road after that, Drew. This is where we see a 3-game win streak to put Oakland back on track.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, absolutely. Go ahead.
I think this is exactly what you're going to see out of a Raiders fan. I think this is what Steven is hoping, that there is a chance in the future. I don't think it's 2019. I think it's 2020 where you see the Raiders take a significant turn. You cannot turn a team 100% with free agents in their first year. Their chemistry is huge about NFL teams. It's just what it is. Rarely do you see a lot of free agents, a lot of draft picks the first year cohesive become a great team. Rarely does that happen. But I think when you look at these last 3 games, they're winnable, and it gets a bright future for the 2020 season.
Cody, Jeremy, we're just razzing you guys. Cody, I know you were working last night, man. It's cool. Chase that dollar. Go be the best you can be. We are 100% in on that. We're glad when you're here. We appreciate your comments. Jeremy says he was driving through that ugly city, Kansas City. I get it. They probably don't have internet out in Kansas, right, Drew? I understand how hard it can be for you for
All
that.
right, Cody, I was completely joking, man. I'm glad you could join us. Jeremy, I am not joking with you.
Number 1, right here.
You're a jerk. After I said you're a slim and sexy looking guy. After I said that. Oh, man.
All right.
The blood, sweat, and tears that I've given you, Jeremy.
Also, Steven says he'll get back to us during the season, but he's saying right now he wants to go on record saying it's 9-7. They will push for a wild card in Oakland. We see 6-10. And we see that 2-game improvement as a sign that things are working under Gruden, right?
Yeah, and we believe Antonio Brown can do something like that where you're going to see those extra wins because of an elite player like that given to a quarterback who showed signs of being elite.
Absolutely. I think when you look at Oakland, we're going to see them beating the Broncos on the road in 17 as opposed to week 1. I also think they're going to beat the Chargers 16 because the Chargers are a team that let people hang around. The Chargers are probably beat up by now. Oakland, if they have these healthy receivers, may outshoot them in a game that actually winds up hurting the Chargers. Maybe this is the game that puts the Chargers behind the Chiefs this year.
Finally, someone knows what they're talking about. Zach says they have internet in Kansas City. Finally, someone...
Missouri or Kansas? Which one? Which side of the border?
Which
side of the
border?
border?
Finally, someone with some smarts watching.
You gotta be honest
and
here,
commenting.
Zach.
I'm just throwing that out there. No offense, Ian and Steven. I'm just throwing that out there. Finally, someone that knows what they're talking about.
Also, Ian says the Raiders, who you just insulted and said is a terrible human being, said that the Raiders are just buying time until that new stadium out there in Las Vegas. This is why I'm everybody's favorite.
And I'm just going to throw this out here. I'm calling it in the future, the next couple of years, as soon as they move to Vegas, not only will there be a Super Bowl there, the Raiders will win a Super Bowl too because the NFL will it.
It's going to take a lot of John Gruden shenanigans.
That's why he's got 10 years to do it,
It's got to be some shenanigans before I see it happen. There will be a Super Bowl there because the NFL loves new stadiums, and I think all these casinos out there are going to love to chip into that.
Jeremy, they have 6G service, okay? All right?
See, it's funny. I don't even see these comments. I don't. I see just randomly.
Oh,
there
okay.
it is. Just came up. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Internet or Facebook or whoever you are. Guys, we appreciate all that. It was a great show. Obviously, one of our better shows. I think this, to me, was absolutely fun. I love talking Raiders. Even though a lot of people don't think we do. I know you're the Chiefs fan. I could care less about the AFC West.
I don't hate the Raiders.
Who wins it, it's fine. They're going to be better than my team anyway.
Don't like the Broncos, though.
I think this division is going to be interesting, and I think the Raiders are still going to be interesting, even though I don't see them as contenders. I think they're one of those teams that's going to have some upsets, kind of like Buffalo, kind of like maybe even like Miami and Tampa Bay, that they're going to shock some teams, and we're going to be talking about what can they do in years going forward. Right now, the goal needs to be going from having pick 4 to having pick 3, I should say, to having pick 9, pick 10, pick 11. If you do that, it's a successful year out there in Oakland, and I want to see what they do in Vegas.
Last comment, Cody says the offensive line good enough to hold on the Denver pass rush?
Amen.
That's why we said week 1, we believe it's going to be a loss for the Oakland Raiders. We do think week 17, they might have worked out the kinks a little bit. I get it's a mile high, but I mean, they're used to playing there.
The other thing, too, is the reason the Raiders and Broncos are playing in Week 17 is so the NFL can have the Chiefs and Chargers play in Week 17. That's the game everyone's most likely going to be looking forward to. I think both these teams by now are probably just playing for pride. And I think if I had to pick a team, you've got guys like Antonio Brown, Vontaze Burfict out there in Oakland that might have a little bit more of that I want to win every time than the Broncos have. I think that might be the difference here.
Ian said, even though I said that he's going to have a stroke, he still thinks I'm number 1.
He tried to kill you today, and he still says you're number 1A.
I didn't say he died from the stroke.
Oh, okay. Just, all right. Anyway.
Hey, guys, thank you so much again for joining us around Sports Around the Bar this evening. All your comments, likes, and shares mean the world to us. This show was just amazing of outpouring of the comments and love that you guys send us. But I do want to give special thanks to the people that commented. And if I missed you, I am so sorry. But Jonathan, Nathan, Ian, Alex, Steven, Dylan, Owen, Ivy, Sharif, Kenneth, Frank, Lynn, Chris, Kyle, Jeremy, Emily, Cody, Zach, You guys are all awesome.
And
women
viewers like you
are just perfect. And it's great. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Also, if you didn't comment, we appreciate you being here. It was a great show. We love talking about the Oakland Raiders. I see we're still getting some people in here. If you missed it, we talked an entire show about Oakland. If you want to see it, we talked an entire half show about Oakland. It's there. Click on the video tab. Pretty much any team you want to see is in there. We have one team left, Drew, that we're going to talk about on Monday. And then after that, we're going to do a quick recap. And we're going to be on to fantasy football. And finally, the meat of the year, we're going to be talking NFL. I'm ready for it. I know you are.
I am.
We hope to see you guys there. You guys are awesome. Whether you commented or not, we appreciate you. We appreciate the shares especially. We appreciate the likes. We appreciate the comments. The show's better because you're here. We want to talk with you. We like to pretend we know what we're talking about, but we love to hear what you guys think about everything going on in the NFL.
We love the debate, the banter of this show. And Jeremy, we know you're joking, man. It's all in fun.
There's internet, but it's only like Comcast dial-up. We're joking. Sorry, Zach.
The highest dial-up you could think of. And to be honest with you, Jeremy, I obviously think the world of you, man. You have been such a staple point in comments and watching our show. We appreciate everything you do. I still think you're a slim, sexy young man, as I do with all the men and women, but you're not men, are sexy and slim.
Whoever you are, you're beautiful in your own way. So, for Sports Around the Bar, that was my final thoughts. We're going to be back on Monday to finish out with the Jaguars, and then after that, we're on to the meat. I promise we're going to be talking about things actually going on in the NFL.
You're going to feed me?
Something like that.
Oh.
For Sports Around the Bar, I am Jake, your bartender. This is Drew. We hope to see you on Monday, same time, 6:45 Central, 7:45 Eastern. Great show. Can't wait to talk to you then.